wearing anything. This shirt, man. Okay, that looks a little better. Hey, is that how it's supposed to be worn?
I think you're too fat for this shirt.
Okay, that looks kind of funny, but we're going with it.
Hello there and welcome to a review of Romola by George Eliot. This is a historical drama set in Renaissance Florence. I read Romola for Kate Howe's January Readalong Most Victorian. I really tried hard to look Renaissance-y for this book. If I was really going to be ambitious, I would have taken off my glasses and put in my 10-year-old contacts, but no, I'm just not.
Anyway.
This could not be more different from Silas Marner, which was the December Readalong Most Victorian. For one thing, this one is like, I don't know how many pages, 600, 800 something pages, and like I said, just completely different stylistically. However, one thing has remained the same, and that is the amazing characterization and character arcs of George Eliot. I just can't even get over how amazing her characters are, but we'll get into that. I read about 25% of this on Kindle, and it was going pretty well when I was reading it in hard copy, and then I had to switch to audiobook, and I don't recommend doing that with this work, because even though there are sections where it works on audiobook, because you're mostly following one person for a little while, and then it'll switch to another person and you know them pretty well, there's also like a lot of things that I happen to miss when I'm listening to audiobook, and you know, like setting details. The politics and the setting are so complex that I'm willing to bet you'll probably miss something too if you just read this on audiobook exclusively. On to the synopsis! A young Grecian washes up to shore. He's now in Florence, and he's wearing this kind of rich clothes that have been totally spoiled by whatever his latest adventure was, but he has some jewels to sell, so clearly he's got like a rich background, and nobody knows who he is in Florence. But man, is he handsome! This dude is so hot that all the girls are just like, take me, Tito! That's how we get a lot of our conflict in this book, is because of this dude and the girls who fall in love with him. In the beginning, you see that he's not a bad dude. He just really likes his own comfort, and he ends up making decisions that spare him from anything that might be difficult. He's trying to take steps away from the responsibilities of his past, and that ends up dividing his moral character in a way that becomes habitual for him. And in his politics, he becomes just as divided as he is in his personal life, and it affects his romance and his political life. And people start noticing, right? Because you can't make those kinds of compromises without people noticing. So finally we meet Romola, who is the first love of Tito the Grecian. She returns that love. They get married. A lot of her problems are basically in responding to her husband's issues. Not that she is just a responsive character, she does make her own waves wherever she swims. But she is the subject of the main plot line. We're following things quite often through her perspective, but we do also follow through Tito's perspective, which is where things got stressful for me personally as a reader, because we're following Tito around and we want him to make good decisions, but he's just gradually making bad ones. And in the beginning, you just really want to like him, like everybody does, because he's so handsome and charming and laid back and always knows the right thing to say. But then you meet Romola and you're kind of like, yeah, there's definitely a difference there. If they can't get along, there's some discord at the heart of their relationship. And we see what that is fairly quickly. And then the political backdrop gradually weaves itself into the personal plots. And then there's Florence, which at this time is a great place for a political schemer to make a life. The Medicis have been expelled, and there's this controversial prophet guy who's trying to essentially lead the city, because he's gained quite a large following, and his name is Girolamo Savonarola.
Girolamo Savonarola. Girolamo Savonarola.
And he was a really interesting character too, and I'll get into that. Now, the political backdrop of the book at first is just that. It's a backdrop to the personal story of Romola and Tito. But it gradually kind of weaves itself into their personal plot because Romola meets Girolamo Savonarola, and that's where things get real complicated. So I just want to warn you that there's going to be some spoilers. It's going to be more of a discussion than just a review. But honestly, that's not a bad thing if you're wanting to read this. I think it's complex enough that spoilers will not hurt this. There's not really any, like, revelations to this plot. I didn't really feel that much surprise to this plot, other than the fact that Tito was turning out to be such a jerk. When I started the story, I didn't necessarily think that was going to happen. That to me was the most distressing thing. Kate Howe actually, she was like, You know, if you're getting stressed about it, you can just read a plot synopsis. Good plan. And so I did it, and it really helped. Honestly, the plot synopsis might be a good road for you too if you're just having trouble keeping a grip on such a big book, or if you're getting kind of like stressed about it like I was. There's this Victorian deep dark secret trope thing, which Kate and I talked about. To me, that's like super stressful. Dang, I'm so bad at Instagram, I can't even figure out where our conversation— oh, I found it. She says, I just looked through my Victorian spreadsheet and 34 of the Victorian novels I've read have a secret be a major plot point. Holy crap. She said she thinks it might be maybe like a new plot device, so they just went crazy for it, which made me laugh. That's good to know. It didn't really bother me in Silas Marner because there is a deep dark secret plot trope, but you're not with that character like the entire book. And in this book, it's just so long with Tito that it was just it was hard for me. But anyways, that's just my personal experience. So if you care about spoilers, I'll just talk to you later. But you can totally come back for the discussion part if you end up reading this book. Thank you for watching. Please come back if you do end up reading Romola. Bye. I really wish that I had time to dig more into the historical setting details of this book, because Savonarola is like a really interesting character to me, historically. I want to read his books now. I want to find out more about him. I ended up reading a Britannical article about him. Savonarola, he's critiquing the political and religious establishments for corruption that's going on. But unfortunately, I was mostly following the emotional story of Romola and Tito, and so he kind of slipped through the cracks for me a little bit. But initially, when I first heard the synopsis of this book, he was actually what sounded most interesting to me, because it's like this religious guy taking control of the city, and I always think that's crazy and scary and interesting. I'm not sure how correct Eliot's portrayal of this guy is, because like in the end he recants some things that he had claimed under torture, and to me it's like, yeah, I think pretty much everybody recants under torture. That's not that surprising. I read this book called Silence by Shusaku Endo, which is translated from the Japanese, and it's about, I think, Jesuit missionaries who went to Japan during the Edo period, and all the Christians are just completely, like, destroyed by the political establishment of the time, and they all pretty much recant. There's this whole movement of, like, secret Christians. I know there have been people who underwent torture and they just, like, held firm, because sometimes, you know, the Holy Spirit might kind of sustain you through something like that. But sometimes you're just there to suffer, man, and I honestly would not blame anybody for recanting. That's me and my humanness. Maybe I'm being too empathetic here, but personally, I do not blame anybody for recanting under torture like what Savonarola went through. So to me, the kind of judgment that fell on him, it kind of felt like it was supposed to be a judgment on Savonarola. And again, if I was paying more attention to him, maybe I would have understood why Eliot decided to go that route with his fate. But it did kind of bother me, because it was like, how are you gonna blame a dude for recanting under torture? Like, I don't know. But regardless, I loved that she included him, and in fact, this story was largely about him. He was the historical character, essentially, that this was about. So clearly, Eliot and other Victorian writers, kind of like some of the Bronte sisters and their works also like critiqued the clergy. I think there was just a lot of people like Savonarola throughout history who are critiquing those in power who aren't doing things right, and that's really cool. My favorite aspect of Eliot's works is her characterizations. I love how she portrays Tito going through this arc where he starts off kind of like a pure and innocent dude, and he has all these choices before him, and unfortunately he makes bad choices, which leads to bad habits, which leads to a bad character eventually. It's just like step by step he gets there, and that's how it happens in real life too. And it's kind of hard to portray that in an interesting way in a book, in my opinion, but not only does Eliot portray that theme, she also portrays Romola making good choices throughout her life for other people. She continually decides to go against what she wishes in order to support other people. And it's like, who ends up happier? Oh my gosh, like, it's not even a contest. Tito ends up murdered by his stepfather, and nobody liked him anyway. And then we have Romola, who everybody thinks is a saint, and they mistake her for, like, the Madonna. And she's got, like, family, she's got little babies to take care of. She just has such a blessed life and a good attitude, and she's helped so many people. She's, like, a heroine by the end of the story. And this is because she has continually made choices to refine her character and to do the hard things. She gets into this mode where she just doesn't do the easy thing anymore. And she's always critiquing herself and looking for a better way to do things, particularly as far as other people. And Savonarola is actually the one who spoke that truth into her life. He's like, you need to stop thinking so much about yourself and your pity for yourself. You need to start helping those who need your help. And she really took that to heart. Even when she and Savonarola ended up parting ways, which again was another conflict that it just kind of went over my head a bit because I was listening to it instead of reading it. But it did affect her the rest of her life. Okay, listen to this quote that Eliot gives us, which is just amazing. I wish I had more quotes from this book, but since I was listening, I didn't gather as many as I would have liked. The contaminating effect of deeds often lies less in the commission than in the consequent adjustment of our desires, the enlistment of our self-interest on the side of falsity. As, on the other hand, the purifying influence of public confession springs from the fact that by it the hope in lies is forever swept away, and the soul recovers the noble attitude of simplicity. Isn't that great? Eliot did such a fantastic job portraying Tito's character development as he makes these continually bad decisions that, yeah, they hurt other people, for sure, but they hurt him just as much. Conversely, the character of Romola she's like a saint. No matter what she believes, she's still like a saint because she goes against her own desires in order to help other people. And I know that Flannery O'Connor would be like, oh, she just thinks she's Jesus or something. There's some of her characters that try to do good on their own without the help of the church, and she essentially puts that to personal pride. But Romola doesn't have personal pride by the end. She really kind of sets that aside. She's like, I know that I'm not doing these things out of heroism. I am doing these things because I need something to devote my life to. So it's almost like a selfish decision to her that she is helping people in the end. And to me, it's just like, oh, she's so humble and she's so good. Even though she's had kind of a rough life, I just really liked her as a character. And she was the happiest character in the story by the end. Except for maybe Tessa, who, again, Eliot, just like in Silas Marner, seems to be saying that the peasant often has the happier existence over the rich and ambitious, because Tessa is such a simple person. She's just such a simple character, but because she's taken care of for the most part, like, she has her basic needs met. She's got her babies, she's got this wonderful holy woman, like, living with her and helping her. She's so simple, but she's taken care of, and so she's completely happy. She has no ambitions. She's just like so thankful. She's like, what a wonderful world we live in. And she's grown fat and happy. So it seems like to me that's a theme that was also in Silas Marner. So overall, I'm not sure how I would rate this because I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it at a lot of points. There was a lot of points where it was just like, eh. But I kept going because Kate Howe said she was like loving it. I was like, I want to love it too. And I'm really glad that I finished it because it did finish strong. And I did love parts of it, as I said. There were some really beautiful quotes in there, and I do love the characters. And I'm just amazed by her flawless characterization. Overall, I'm glad that I read this. I'm glad that I kind of pushed through. Thank you so much, Kate, for hosting. This was a great experience for me. And I hope it was for other people too. Hello guys, I've pretty much given up putting on makeup for every time I film because who has time for that, right? I just wanted to say that Kate Howe put up a fantastic discussion video about Romola. And even though when I made this original review, I was kind of thinking like, this is not my favorite book in the world, even though I liked it and I thought there was a lot of good stuff in it, her discussion kind of changed my mind. I actually enjoyed it more after hearing her discussion, which is kind of what discussion is supposed to do, hopefully. So I do recommend checking out her discussion if you're interested in this book, if you enjoyed this book. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you've probably already seen hers because she's like 10,000 times bigger than this channel, but just so you know, I will link it up here again. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any comments or recommendations about other books that George Eliot wrote or other books like this one, go ahead and leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. If you did enjoy this video, please give me a little thumbs up in the corner. And if you want to see more of my videos, you can go ahead and subscribe. And in fact, if you want to be notified anytime that I'm posting a new video, you can hit the little notifications bell off to the corner beside the subscribe button. Thank you so much again for watching, guys. I really am enjoying doing this, and I hope you're enjoying watching it too. Take care.